Hi everyone, welcome to today's demo. Here we're going to demonstrate some beautiful full rib and tuck variations, also using the half pitch lever to create a beautiful zigzag effect. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is make sure your machine is set to the cross position, H position, and it's in the center row. So we're starting with all needles, and we are going to be doing for this swatch about 30 needles on either side of 0, about 60 needles total. What you'll see with this swatch that we're going to create is that full needle ribs and variations using the tuck buttons really create a lot of added width. And so if you want some more volume or transferring volume in your knit, this is a beautiful option that you can use. So start by casting on, and you can see in my other videos the casting on effects. Remember, if you are looking for some guidance, I do offer at carolynferreira.ca online courses designed to get you really comfortable on your knitting machine. Here we are going to now change over to the good working yarn after the cast on has been completed. And take your carriage across one row nice and tight for your tension. With a standard gauge yarn, that tension on this machine is going to be somewhere between 0 and 1 for full needle rib. Then you want to work 3 rows in a tubular direction. So the top will knit first, followed by the bottom bed, and then the top bed once again. Deselect your tubular and knit 1 row all needles. Now here we're going to do a few passages all needle rib before switching to a different design. We're going to be using the tuck buttons. On the Brother machine, the tuck is activated at the top with the tuck button just one direction, and the bottom you must select the part button in one direction and make sure it's opposite to your top carriage. That way your tuck button is going to be alternating from the top bed to the bottom bed. Now if you were seeing this in a 1x1, this is considered a fisherman rib. We're using all needles right now, and we're using the alternate tuck buttons. So we're going to get a lot of extra width and volume doing this. Keep in mind that the tuck is holding the yarn when you carry the carriage across. So sometimes you really need to make sure the weight is quite accurate and your tension is quite accurate so that you don't have any jamming on your machine. Now, what we're going to do here is create a nice design effect here, just for some interest. So in this example, on every 5th needle, so the 6th needle, I'm going to be transferring over and keeping 5 in work and 1 out of work on the main bed. This is going to create a beautiful little eyelet. We'll be doing 4 rows here with this open work, and we're only doing it on the main needle bed. This is a design decision, of course. It's just to give you some visual interest. So when you are doing this on a full scale, just make sure, take into account if you want your eyelet rows to be even in accordance to the width of your sample or your final piece, knowing that every 5th or 6th needle will be transferred. Once you do that, take the needles out of work that have been transferred and go ahead and knit 4 rows. I'm setting my dial here to 0 to just make sure I'm staying on track, as we will repeat this pattern for a design effect. Again, watching the tuck, I like to push my needles back and make sure the weight is right sometimes before going back again so that the yarn does not jam the carriage. Your last one, bring it over, and then you want to actually bring the needles back into work. So you'll take that second yarn over and bring your needle back into work by transferring the yarn onto the needle. This will ensure that the needle will go back to work and the hole will be closed. Depending on which side you started with your carriage, you might need to do 5 passages if you want to bring your carriage back to the right, as I have done here in this example. Whatever number of rows you decide, just make sure you repeat the pattern exactly the same each time. Once you're done transferring, then you can continue with the matching number of rows before your eyelet. Here in this example, I did approximately 20 or 30 rows, and the eyelet was 5 rows. Then I'm going to repeat the pattern one more time. Here's a close-up version of the transfer happening. Again, every 6th needle you can bring over. If you'd like to do a staggered effect, then for this I would actually do the 3rd needle the 2nd time around, and your eyelets would be in a diamond shape effect, so they will stagger in between your first time. This is just, of course, a design decision. It's completely up to you. So once again, I am doing my rows here and then closing the work and repeating the same number of passages as I did before the eyelets. Once you're completed with that, deselect your tuck buttons so that your carriage is set to all needles, and knit as many rows as you did before to repeat the pattern. Remember to consider tension can be different with tuck variations and full needle ribs. Generally, tuck stitches can have a little bit of a tighter tension, and full needle rib may require a little bit looser on your knitting machine. When you're done with the number of rows, we're going to start our next design. We're going to be transferring from our ribber bed up to the main bed carriage. In this example, I'm transferring every 3rd needle, so 2 needles remain in work and 1 needle remains out of work. Do this for the entirety across your ribber bed. So here you can see on the ribber bed, 2 needles in work, 1 needle out of work. Make sure the needles out of work are pushed all the way down into the D position. Take your carriage across 2 times. Then with your half pitch lever, we're going to move it directionally from side to side. So in this design, we're going to be going over to the right with the half pitch lever 1 turn and then 2 passages. Move it over again, 2 passages. We're doing this 3 times in one direction, and then we're going to alternate back in the opposite direction 6 times. What this is doing essentially is zigzagging your knit. So make sure, again, depending on exactly the design that you want, you know how many times you're going from one direction back to the other. Remember that 5 is 0 or center of your knitting machine on the half pitch lever dial. Therefore, your first time you will go 3 or maximum 5 in one direction, and then followed by 3 or 5 back to center, and continue 3 or 5 more in the same direction. That basically means you will be even on both sides. Make sure you finish with your carriage and your half pitch lever back in the neutral position. Repeat as many times as you like. Here you can see the half pitch lever as I'm knitting for a better view. Once again, starting in neutral, I'm doing 2 passages, moving it over towards the right, 2 passages again, over towards the right, 2 passages again, and over to the right one more time. That is 3 times in one direction. Then I'll be going back, now towards the left, twice, 3 times will take me to 0, and I will continue in that direction 3 more times until I get to number 8. Then proceed 3 times towards the right to bring you back to 0. This is one full repeat. Depending on how large you would like the design to carry on, you can do this a few times for your sample and then calculate for a full piece. When you're done with your design, put all your needles back into the working position and take the yarn over from your main bed to your ribbon bed to close the non-working needles before knitting some full rows once again and closing the work. Here I'm using the single transfer tool, and you can also use a double end transfer tool if you feel more comfortable with that. The important part is that we don't want any holes remaining in our work. Transfer over and fill the empty needles. When you've come to the end, make sure your carriage is in normal working position and knit 4 rows to finish your work. Now you've got 4 rows of all needle. You can smoothly transition all your ribbon loops onto your main bed to cast off. For rib type stitches, the casting off method is completely up to you. A crochet or loop through loop cast off will give the work a little bit more flexibility. Something like a knit bind off, definitely if you struggle with the tension, will be quite tight. However, if you're pretty comfortable, then you can make sure that you've got enough tension and looseness between each loop so that it doesn't feel super tight. A crochet cast off is a great way to give some flexibility, and depending where this seam will intersect on a garment, you really want to consider which method to cast off with. In this example, I am doing a bind off, casting off method. For other types of methods, you can refer to my other YouTube videos, and remember, CF Studio at carolynferreira.ca offers knitwear courses online. So here you can see the beautiful finished product. In the beginning, we started with the tuck variations and some lovely eyelet holes. In the center, a full needle rib, and at the top, we did a zigzag design pattern. You can see the beautiful volume that the bottom creates, and that lovely shape that, with the same amount of needles, naturally occurs. This can be a great design for a dress, a skirt, or a sleeve. You can see naturally that beautiful volume that you get using this stitch technique. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. You can always ask questions or comment in the section below, and I'll see you next time.